Hey people, welcome to my channel where English is not just a subject, it's a story. I am your cool English teacher, and today we are diving into one of the most beautiful chapters from your class 10 syllabus, A Letter to God by Gregorio Lopez Fuentes. But hold up, this is not going to be a boring lesson. No way. We are going to make it fun, easy, and memorable so that when you sit for your exams, you literally hear my voice helping you write the answers. Quick question. Have you ever wanted to send a letter to someone really powerful? Like God level powerful? Well, Lencho does exactly that. But first, let's meet the author. Gregorio Lopez Fuentes was a Mexican writer who loved writing about the lives of poor farmers. His stories often show their struggles, emotions, and hopes in a very simple yet powerful way. Now that we know the author, let's quickly set the scene for our story. Now imagine a small house on top of a low hill with nothing else around except land, sky, and fields of crops. This is where our main character Lencho lives with his family. Farming is their only source of income, and every year they hope for a good harvest. Let's see what kind of a guy Lencho really is. Lencho is hardworking, honest, and full of hope. This year he expects a good harvest and he knows that a little rain can change everything. He looks at the sky and trusts God. Lencho trusts God completely. He doesn't stress, doesn't doubt. He's just like, God's got this. God will help me out. God will help his crops flourish. You could say Lencho is straight up vibing with faith. But of course, life has its own plot twists. The rain finally comes. Lencho is hyped. He is overjoyed. He even calls the raindrops new coins because to him, each drop is like money falling from the sky. Cute, right? But then, boom, the rain turns into a hailstorm. Hard pieces of ice smash the crops, destroying everything. Can you imagine all your hard work getting wiped out in minutes? Lencho and his family are heartbroken. Honestly, I'd be screaming at the sky, but Lencho, he is calm. That's some next level faith. So, what does Lencho do when everything seems lost? That night, Lencho tells his family no corn left for this year. But instead of giving up, he decides to seek help from God. His faith is unshakable. He truly believes that God will answer his prayers no matter how impossible it seems. And here comes the most unusual part of the story. The next morning, Lencho is basically sliding into God's DMs and he writes a letter to God asking for 100 pesos so he can sow his fields again and feed his family until the next harvest. Then he walks to the town, goes to the post office, and mails the letter. To Lencho, this is completely normal. He has full confidence that God will respond. But what happens next? Let's see how the postmaster reacts. The postmaster reads Lencho's letter and is surprised. But instead of laughing, he is deeply moved. He decides to help. He collects money from his employees, adds a bit of his own, and sends it to Lencho. This is where we see the power of human kindness in action. And now we see Lencho's reaction when he receives the money. Lencho receives the money and feels like God answered his prayer. But then he notices the amount is less than he asked for. And what does he think? The post office employees stole the rest. Lencho is salty but still loyal to God. So he writes another letter to God complaining about the crooked employees. This ending is funny but also shows how innocent and unshakable Lencho's faith is. Now that we know the story, let's break down the characters. Now, Lencho is the heart of this story. He is a hard-working farmer who lives on a small hill with his family. Despite his poverty, he is honest, determined, and completely dedicated to his land. What makes Lencho truly special is his unshakable faith in God. Even when his entire crop is destroyed, he doesn't lose hope. Instead, he writes a letter to God asking for help. Lencho is also very innocent. He trusts completely in God and expects Him to answer. He even calls raindrops new coins, showing his poetic and simple way of seeing life. Through Lencho, the author teaches us about faith, hope, and the strength of human spirit. Even in the toughest times, hope can keep you going. Now let's look at the kind soul who decided to help him. The postmaster is another important character in this story. He is a man of empathy and kindness. When he reads Lencho's letter, he doesn't laugh or dismiss it. Instead, he is deeply moved by the boy's faith. He represents the idea that humans can act as instruments of goodness. Without Lencho knowing, he collects money from his employees and even adds some from his own pocket to help him. Through the postmaster, the story shows that kindness and generosity can make a real difference, even when life seems unfair. And he wasn't alone in this act of kindness. The other employees at the post office also play a small but significant role. They willingly contribute from their own pockets to help Lencho. Though we don't know their names, they represent the spirit of community and teamwork. Their actions remind us that even small acts of kindness, when combined, can create a big impact. Together with the postmaster, they show how humans can respond to faith and hope with compassion and generosity. And that brings us to the end of part 1. Alright, that's part 1 of A Letter to God. Today, we saw a farmer's faith led him to write to God and how human kindness tried to answer that faith. So now it's your turn. I want you to pause for a moment and think about these questions. And hey, you can write your answers in the comments too. So the first question is, why do you think Lencho trusted God so much? Was it blind faith or something deeper? Think about it. Second question, do you think the postmaster and the other employees did the right thing by helping Lencho? Why or why not? Imagine if it were you, what would you have done? And finally, the third question. It's a reflective one. How can we keep hope alive even when things go wrong? It's short, simple, but super important to think about. Take a moment, jot down your answers, and let's discuss them in the comments below. I'm really curious to see what you all come up with. In part 2, we'll explore themes, literary devices, and important exam questions, so you can easily score full marks. And on a side note, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And I'll see you in part 2.